Good evening, Tigercast fans. Welcome back to the very first episode of Behind Frenemy Lines, a brand new segment that we're rolling out each week in the lead up to our games. We thought it'd be great to get an opposition supporter on to talk about the game when the teams are out and get a better perspective on things, because as much as we like to think we do an okay job on a Monday night, we really don't know as much about the ins and outs of opposition teams as a supporter themselves. So first cab off the rank, we have got PommyinOz on the show, who's an absolute superstar YouTuber, a mad Carlton supporter, and he's doing heaps and heaps of good things. And I know a lot of the Richmond supporters here do watch his stuff, and I encourage any other Richmond supporter, go and check out Pommy's channel. It's linked in the description. He does really great stuff. He's a very, very funny man. So, Pommy, welcome to the show, mate.
I'm the ultimate enemy, aren't I? Carlton fan and a Pom. So, I'm like the Collingwood of nations, really. Everyone hates me but my own kind. So it's great to be here. I'm deeply honoured. I can't wait for this one.
No, it should be good. It's it's been something I thought that we should probably do for a while, talking to opposition supporters, because you guys know your club better than we know your club. And by watching your content, you're a very passionate Carlton supporter. So I guess straight off the bat, how did you end up becoming a Carlton supporter? Where did it all start?
My father-in-law, really. And I think, like, when you marry into an Australian family, the last thing they want is a Pom, innit? So the way that you can offset that is by joining the club. So, yeah, I nearly was a Geelong fan. My boss, who I first worked for, was a big Geelong man. Shout out to Tom, if he is watching. Nearly committed, but I hated the game. I hated the game, I'll be totally honest. And then, speaking with my father-in-law, watching that, he slowly taught me the ins and outs. And then to try and get a bee in my father-in-law's bonnet, I wanted to become an expert on it so I could talk to him as an equal and not ask what this meant. And I literally had a whole summer playing AFL Live 99. That was actually how I learned the rules. Wow. It actually really helped me. Yeah. It just went on from then, really. And this is where I am. And yeah, I'm the stupidest person in Australia. I could have chosen any team, blank slate, and I chose a team that was going through a forever rebuild. I'm a genius. I mean,
and then when you look at the sliding doors moment of Geelong getting a little bit of success in recent memory as well.
Yeah. You know, the worst thing is my best mates over here are 4 Richmond fans, 6 Pies, and 2 Geelong, and they all tried to get me to join. And literally, whichever one I would have chosen, I would have seen at least one flag by now. So quality just shows being stubborn doesn't pay.
I'm sure the Blues' time will come. They've got as much as it kills me to say, they've got a very, very good list. And it's no surprise that you were sort of getting up there the last few years. Do you think you got what it takes this year to knock on the door of top 4?
The best way I can answer this is it has to be. It has to be. All signs lead to top 4, don't they? Top 6 oldest list, 6 most experienced. All the excuses we always have are gone now. They've done it twice, so it's now become routine. It's not a surprise. It has to be. And I think the wonderful thing about being a Carlton fan is why I can't blindly definitively say it is because you just don't know. Carlton are probably the worst team in the world to put money on, because they might win you it, or they might make you tell your wife you're going to have to remortgage. It's that bad. So I think we've still got some question marks, but I think definitely we're capable. We're capable. And hopefully by the end of it, I'll be a happy guy and I can sit with my group of mates and tell them it's great to win a flag.
That's it. No, I'm sure your time will come. Now, Richmond and Carlton have played, I think it's probably the last 17 years almost in the round 1 game. Are you still happy with that as the round 1 game? Has it run its course? I mean, I know there was, early days you guys were smacking us on a yearly basis and the roles reversed, and now it's back the other way. Has it done its course, or is it still just a great draw card and almost guaranteed 80,000 plus attendance for the start of the season?
I always say this about rivalries. So coming from the UK, our rivalries are like your rivalries, but on steroids. They're crazy. Yeah. But the best rivalries are when them rivalries become, I wouldn't say friendly, but there's a healthy respect between the sides. Yeah. And I always think the biggest rivalry is Carlton and Collingwood. There is a genuine hatred where you've only got to see the forums. Carlton and Collingwood fans are the only fans in the world that can have a go at each other on a Christmas Day post. It's fascinating. I've always felt us and you have had a healthy respect for each other. So I am old enough to remember us beating you, and I am also old enough to know what it's like to be the underdogs. And I'm now coming back into we should be winning. I always think there's been a healthy respect between our sides, though. Do you know what I mean? Like a real healthy respect. Like,
and I think it's been equally as fiercely competitive. But yeah, I think it had the spoils have been shared over the years, and it's just a momentum shift every few years, I guess.
Yeah, and I always think that even though we've been rubbish, and even when you were rubbish, it's always been not as probably as far away as the scoreboard might have shown. I remember 2018, we had a great battle and we were rubbish, but there was that hope. And the Richmond game is a funny one for me because it's always the one that maybe lies to me the most. Because when we were rubbish, I'd see, hang about, we've had 3 quarters with the best side in the comp and they've had to work to beat us. And then we'd go over to play Gold Coast at the G. That's where you can get smacked by 70. And I'd be there scratching my head going, I managed to keep Dustin Martin to 18 touches and no goals. Like, who's this guy running rings around us from Gold Coast? So, no, yeah, I think it should stay. I think it speaks for itself, doesn't it? 90,000 will be packed in there tomorrow. It'll make opening round look like stupid ideas, which it is. So I can't wait. It's the best way to open the season for me.
Yeah, I suppose the reverse to the false hope part is even last year for us, round 1, we lost by 5 points. And we're like, hang on, maybe we are going to go all right. And then next minute, we only win 2 games for the season. So it can give you great hope and then crush you only a few weeks later.
It's got a great way of doing that, this football malarkey, hasn't it? Honestly, I think second only to my kids, nothing can get under my skin like the game of football. Can it? Like change my emotions on a whim.
It's hard, and like we were saying off air, it's hard to sometimes get over those losses where you think you should be winning. And I think both teams have gone through those phases where they've been expecting to win these games, and then all of a sudden not. But I think this one might be a little bit different. But we'll have a look at the scores. The margins for the last 4 times we've played. So in 2024, we played you round 1. You won 86-81. Round 16, you knocked us a bit more, 131-70. Round 2023, round 1, we drew 58 points each, a bit of a low-scoring affair. And then 2022 and round 14 was the last time we beat you, 81-66. So the momentum's definitely shifted Carlton's way. We've obviously all had a long pre-season. What's the Blues pre-season been like? Has there been any standout performers that you're expecting a big year from that maybe we might not know about or haven't really covered off on?
Well, it's been quite an entertaining pre-season for Carlton. Everything from dick pics to scandals. So we've really come into this with a lot of off-field dramas. But on-field, there is obviously a couple of players that do look good. Jesse Motlop, definitely. I feel like I've said this for 5 years in a row, but Jesse Motlop does look fit, does look healthy, does look hungry. He definitely has impressed me, because I feel like we've been talking about this since he's come in the system. He's the small forward we desperately crave, and he does look like it. To be fair, he looks very good. And the other one is my boy, as I'm calling him, Lucas Camparelli. I think he has been a real standout. I was hot on him in the draft. I made that bold call that he was Nick Newman 2.0. Like, people look at his brother, but I think he's got the AFL now in him. He's a very good player. And Cowan and Kemp, obviously, Cowan had a great year last year. I think people aren't surprised by him. But Brody Kemp, definitely, he looks like he's back where he should be in the forward line. And that's probably someone who desperately needs to impress, because I think that really helps Carlton out long-term, making us harder to read. At the moment, I think Richmond know what's going to happen. If it gets tight, Carlton are going to kick it as many times as they can to Harry. And I think everyone in that back line knows. To be fair, though, why wouldn't you? He's a very good marker of the ball. But look, not having Curnow playing does make the game a fraction more interesting, but I think it's offset a little bit by Bolts not being there and our defensive keys being Miller and Blight, who are severely inexperienced in comparison to Mackay. The other one I want to ask you about, firstly, Jagger Smith, massive shout out to him. Hopefully, has a speedy recovery. That was absolutely shithouse news to see. Doesn't matter what club you support, you never want to see injuries on any player, let alone someone who is as talented and as nice as what Jagger is. So fingers crossed he makes a good recovery.
I'm not sure if you're across your future father's sons, but Cody Walker is a father's son upcoming for you guys, but he's also in our NGA area.
Yeah.
So he's a super talented kid, maybe even looking at top 5, top 10, possibly even higher at this stage. And the one time we maybe have access to an NGA good prospect, we're not going to get him. Walker, he's going to nominate Carlton, isn't he? Are we any chance? Is he any chance of saying no to the Blues?
I hope for my sake he doesn't, because he does look a very tasty prospect. I mean, obviously there is a few years for him to go, a couple of years now. So, I mean, the big thing with that is there is many players who are a couple of years away from the draft that are highly touted and that do slide, but he does look quite the sort. I think maybe his dad, because he's so heavily involved in his career, may sway it to the blue side. And but I suppose Jagger as well. He was heavily with you guys as well, wasn't he? So he was a big Richmond guy. He'd played for your VFL. I remember watching that game with interest, and so we might do it again. That'd be quite nice. But I appreciate being Victorian as well. Like, we get stung with that NGA, don't we? Like all the other academies. Like Sydney just seemed to have every great footballer ever. Just evidently happens to be picked 60 all the time, but no one knows about.
And the Lions have cleaned up. Like, they've got 2 Ashcross. They've got plenty of players coming through there.
They've got Annabelle coming through this year as well. Who's a top 5 player. Like, and people say it's the big 4. Hey, and I don't think it is anymore. No,
I don't think we've had good access for quite some time. Looking at the game ahead, we've been obviously lucky enough that the teams have been named, so it gives us some meatier topics to talk about. But looking at the lineups as we've got up here, obviously we've got Lucas Camprelli on the wing as one of your debutants. And then for the Tigers, we're obviously very thrilled and looking forward to seeing Sammy Lawler, Luke Traynor and Harry Armstrong do their thing. Were there any surprises with the lineup from the Blues perspective? I see like Jack Silvani playing in defence. Do you think that's where he's going to play? I know he played forward a little bit in previous years, but is he now sort of locking into being a defender again?
Yeah, I genuinely think, and with Jacob Wheatering, I said it in my preview, that I think Jacob Wheatering is kind of now typecast as this lockdown defender. But when you look at all the other top teams, Jacob is their interceptor. They're using their skills. It's kind of like Carlton use Jacob Wheatering as your lockdown defender, as opposed to the Alex Rance that, if you actually watch Wheatering play, quick, uses the ball well, intercept genius. So Jack in preseason has shown that we've kind of lacked that stay-at-home defender that maybe allows Jacob to play a bit loose. So I think that is definitely the future for Jack. He looks like he's taken to it like a duck to water. And probably the only surprise for me, which isn't a surprise given the last 24 hours, is Mr. Francis Evans making his debut. Carlton fans will be ominous about Francis Evans in the terms of, we've taken a few Geelong people that we always bill up to be the next greatest thing. And aside from Fogarty, they've always been bad. So he's going to be an interesting one there. Carlton's small forward line, definitely an issue.
Okay, so that's I didn't realise he was another debutant. What do you make of our half forward line? There's been a lot of people saying that our half forward line doesn't shoot the lights out. In terms from a matchup perspective, you've got Sard, Mitch McGovern, Lachlan Cowan, potentially up against Orion Mansell, Seth Campbell, and Steely Green. I don't think Seth Campbell's going to play centre half forward for what it's worth, but Adam Sard's the one that worries me, I guess, from the flip side with your rebound, run and carry, setting up all your play from the back half. I'm going to be kind of hoping that a Steely Green or Mansell can shut him down, but he just seems to love to run and carry quite a lot.
I think when I watched your preseason game, I did the watch along for that. And one thing that I said about Collingwood was you did create a lot of scoring shots. And I know it's practice game, but like I always say, I'm looking at the execution. The pressure and intensity is going to be zero. And what gave me hope for Richmond, which I kept saying, was you are finding ways inside 50. And you've got to remember, your coach, Uze, came out and Nathan Broad gave probably the best thing I've ever heard to back up a coach. He said these words. He said, pressure and intensity is the DNA of Richmond. And it's also the easiest thing for a first-year player to replicate because it's the raw basics of what you're about. And when I look at Carlton, if I was coaching to beat Carlton, I would say if that ball goes in airily and it's marked, Carlton's defence will be fine. The issue with the Blues, and you can look, it's quite a medium tall back line, ours is. It's kind of deceptively cagey at times, is when the ball hits the deck, Carlton struggle with small forwards. And the two areas that we've got concern from is repeat inside 50s and stoppage defence. We are appalling last year, but only Eagles and North Melbourne were worse than us at defending that avenue, even though we were one of the best sides at scoring from it. So we have got this temperament of if the ball comes down. So I think if I was Uze, I'd be saying to Sammy Layla, Boa, try and isolate towards that Ollie Hollands and that intercept channel that Haynes and McGovern will play. And that's where Tom Lynch comes in. If Tom Lynch can drag Jacob Wheater into the goal square, which we've seen teams like St Kilda had great success last year doing this, drag Wheater in away from that, that's where you can cause issues. And for Richmond, your hope here is asking Carlton the question. Sam Mitchell said that when he destroyed us last year. Ask Carlton a question long enough, they won't have the answer. Just keep asking them, and he blew us away. And that's up to Richmond, because Carlton will be cagey. I'll be honest, even though I love my boys, you want to make it as cagey and as uncomfortable, slow us down. And I think looking at your forward line, I know it's not exciting, people say. There's a lot of pace there. There's a lot of great ground ball winners. Sam Layla, phenomenal down the back. Do you know what I mean? Phenomenal down the back. Like on the ball, when the ball's there. He's a gift. Steely Green, the guy's a ground ball magnet. So that could be an issue for the Blues if they're not careful.
And I think this is where we've really, really missed Tom Lynch over the last couple of years, because without him there, we'd kick the ball long, and there's too many very, very good intercept marking plays for opposition clubs across the competition that we're just able to pick it off before it even got inside our 50. So having Lynch there structurally really helps, because otherwise you would have seen Wiedering and McGovern have an absolute field day, cutting everything off, because Bauer and Armstrong probably aren't up to playing as the main men just yet, physically and from a maturity perspective as well. So I think a lot's going to be reliant on that. And I think this is a big reason why we brought Harry Armstrong into the side, because you would have seen from our Collingwood game, even though he didn't get a lot of possession, he only played 40 or 50% game time, but he was crashing packs. And if he wasn't marking it, he was bringing it to ground and giving our smalls a chance, which we haven't really been able to do the last few years. And to your point, that if we're any chance to kick a score against you guys, we're going to have to be able to bring it to ground. I don't think we can't rely on outmarking you in our forward line. I just don't think it's going to happen.
100%. And like, there was little things like, I always do a little bit of a scout, and doing so many watch-alongs this year, you kind of get to see how my brain works.
Yeah.
I'm constantly referring in my mind how you guys beat us and how I can beat you. And that Campbell on the ball around forward stoppages genuinely concerned me a little bit, because you go back and watch Carlton's games, particularly the GWS game, particularly the St Kilda game, where they actually beat us from a goal like this. Playing that quick, direct player, Carlton don't have a natural matchup for it. Chad Warner, who is the best at doing this, absolutely blew Carlton away. I've never seen one man destroy a team since Chris.
He's so quick. He's so quick.
Yeah.
You don't.
So I think you've got some strings, and a lot of people saying Blighty on Mackay. I totally agree with that. I think Miller will be better off trying to stop people coming to that target to help Mackay out. That's what Carlton did very well in GWS. They are now trying to get people to stop doubling up on him, and that's what Kent does. I think Blight, his ability to spoil first instead of mark, that's what you want, because that's where Carlton do struggle. They struggle to repeat and get stoppages when the ball hits the deck. So I think this could be a really interesting little battle there. Carlton have got to think this out. It's not as straightforward as some people think. We've got to think to beat this side.
Yeah. I think if you're Mackay and Carlton, you'll try and manufacture the matchup on Miller, I dare say. Because I think Blight probably is physically a lot more fit to play on Mackay. He's a lot more aerobically built. He won our 2K time trial. Not that means a lot in the grand scheme of things, but he's obviously got a good running ability and fitness base, good size, and like you said, loves to spoil. And we were probably a little bit critical of him in the preseason games. He probably left 3 or 4 marks on the table that he could have taken if he had backed himself, which is just a confidence thing. He's a young kid still, not even played 10 AFL games, so that'll come in time. I think ultimately to stop Mackay, it does need to be a team defence, but I think I do agree that Blight's probably our best chance. Who did do a very good job. I think he played on Kerno at one stage last time we played you guys. But yeah, it'll be a big ask, but it'll all mean nothing if we can't actually arrest the midfield. That seems to be our weakness. And remarkably, we actually won the clearances against Collingwood in that practice game. And like you said, the pressure can be totally off. But our takeaway from that was that we seemed very, very slow and one pace in the midfield. So if we didn't win the clearance, the ball was gone at the speed of light. And someone like Patrick Cripps, he could get 40 touches if we don't do this properly, and that's going to be devastating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I look, and that's probably the biggest improvement from Carlton from the observations in the two games is how the midfield are now trying to stop handballing so much. Teams last year really stagnated us because you felt like Carlton were looking for that perfect exit. And at times, it got us into trouble, hence our clearances against and our stoppages against. It's almost like we brought trouble to ourselves, where this year is definitely where we've got an attacking sense at that. And that's probably your biggest problem to stop because we've got some big names in there. We've got some big boys. And from my observations with you guys, it was interesting. I really like Jack Ross's endeavour against Collingwood. He was corralling. He was trying to make it tough. That's kind of what you've got to do with the Blues. That's what you've got to do. You've got to make it hard. The Blues take a bit of time to get going. But that being said, I felt last week against Collingwood, it was your senior players that let the players down. There was Broad gave away some shocking free kicks for just ignorance at times. Vlostin, I thought, ruined all the momentum of the second quarter when you made it very hard for them. So for Blues there, they've got to keep their temperament and they've got to ask the question. But I agree with the comment in there. I don't think it's going to be a blowout straight away. I think Carlton will win, but I think Carlton have got to build into this game because I don't think Richmond are going to play the big game like this and go, Jesus, the Blues better roll over. I think this is a big thing for the Blues.
100%. And as a club, it's a new era almost, and we can't afford to be putting up a non-effort or a rollover effort. I don't think there's any expectation from a lot of Richmond supporters that we're going to play for 4 quarters because the reality is with the profile of our list and where it's at, it's not going to happen. But you'd like to think, sort of similar to the Pies game, we can be really competitive for a quarter and a half and then, I mean, I think the Blues will eventually get on top, but if we can prolong that longer and longer as the season gets on, we're just going to be looking for those small glimpses. And, you know, what you said earlier with what Uze said, the effort and pressure and defensive stuff, you don't need to be a skilled player to do it. Everyone can do that. And I think that's what everyone's bugbear was last year is that everyone kind of mentally checked out for whatever the reason. And it just looked ugly. Like you would have seen some of our games last year. It was almost unwatchable. So, and I think already in the preseason games so far, we have seen a very different method of moving the ball and things like that. And it's going to take time to click. But it's just how long can we hang with the Blues, I think, will be the question. It should be interesting at the start. If we kick a couple of early goals, it might get the boys up and about. But I suppose it'd be, a little bit flat if you come out and go bang, 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 kick 5 goals quickly. It'll take the wind out of our sails pretty quick.
Well, I think you saw with Blues last year when their finals chances, when they went from second to clinging on.
Yeah.
The big thing was Carlton couldn't control games. It was like we played on whims and instinct. And if I'm a big boxing fan, so I was thinking if this was a boxing fight and I had Carlton as my boxer, Richmond is the perfect game that I'd want them to iron on these skills because Richmond are going to come with that intensity. They are going to try and make it hard. They're not here to play football. They're here to stop us playing and make us query who we are. And that's what we used to do to you. Just slow it down, make it hard, and hopefully we can do something. So for the Blues, that's probably their biggest, weakest area. When you watch us play against Hawthorn, Sydney, good teams, when the control goes from us, our difficulty, staying in there. You mentioned it last week with Collingwood's loss, the first quarter against when they were playing. They were getting battered by GWS, but if you actually notice, they still have the same amount of scoring shots. And I was like, the big difference here is they haven't capitalised. This is what Collingwood do. They get battered, but somehow they stay in it, right? And it's enough for them to whittle it away. You saw it with Sydney the night before. Yeah. They did whittle it away, but it was too much. They couldn't quite do it. They made that blasé decision. Florent kicks in front of his own goalpost. A Brisbane guy, game over, the momentum. But good teams can hold on when it's not going their way. That's probably where the Blues struggle. We don't have that ropered up. So I'm really excited about this one because I have a lot of respect for Richmond. And I think the way you've done your rebuild, I said it in the draft. I think this is the way teams should do it. Hawthorn did it this way. You've done it this way. Cut the ribbons, keep your role players, get rid of the stars, build again. Yeah. Don't do a Carlton and say, it's all right, we're coming in 15 years.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, you still got to nail the picks, I guess, as well. But you'd like to think out of 8 picks that at least 50% come through pretty well. I think we might go slightly higher than that. But we'll take a look at some matchups quickly because there's a couple of really key ones that are going to really help decide this game, to be honest. First one, Nankervis up against DeConing. Honestly, there was a point in time last year, I think he had maybe a 4 or 5 game stretch where DeConing was, I think, the best ruckman in the competition until he got hurt during that phase. And if he can get back to that form, he's going to be a seriously hard player to stop. And I'm bloody wrapped I got him in my Supercoach draft team today. But it's going to be a fascinating ruck duel because my main concern with this is Nank will be okay from a rucking perspective, although DeConing might be able to jump over the top of him on some cases. My actual worry is when the ball hits the deck and the pace that DeConing has to get from contest to contest, or maybe even pushing forward to be an option, especially with Curnow not there. Maybe that's part of his role to get forward, and it might find Nank lagging behind a bit. He's obviously a bit older, a little bit slower. This would be a fascinating matchup for these two.
The old wily pit bull versus the young greyhound. And it's a fascinating one because I would say this is the next development in TDK's game. I feel like when he comes up against your Nanks, your old school Colossus heavyweight rucks, sometimes it makes me feel like TDK at times gets into that habitat of going one-on-one with them as opposed to using his skill set. And let's try and use my sleight and athletic ability. So this is a big one here because Nank, he's one of them deceptive players, isn't he? People don't rate him. As a Carlton fan, I always see the comments, oh, it's only Nank, though. He's 100 years old. But you watch him play, he's been there, he's done it. He knows all the dark arts. He knows all the tricks.
Yeah.
A young pup like TDK has got to be wary. So this is a great battle, this, because it's two myriads of styles, two different ends of their career. It's your Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis, isn't it, really? You want this matchup 10 years ago, but you've got it now. You know who should win, but there's still hope, isn't there, that Nank's that dog. He's got that dog in him. So this is it. And I think Lachlan nails it. Like here, you've got to win the ruck contest because you know TDK will win around the ground. So that's the big thing here for TDK.
And it's not... Like TDK could quite easily actually run out of the centre with the ball if we aren't switched on and on our game. Like he's athletically gifted, but I think the only thing in Nank's favour is definitely his physicality and his aggression at the ball and the man with the ball. Sometimes he does overstep the line a little bit, and maybe he'll do that as part of a ploy to try and throw DeConing off his game potentially, just rough him up a little bit early. Being an older dog, you might have to try some tricks like that to try and quell the influence of DeConing, but out of interest, who do you think is going to be your backup ruckman? Will Mackay do any of that, or is there someone else who you think that might do some backup ruck work when DeConing's not in there?
It's interesting, this one, isn't it? Because like with Carlton, they've got like probably the biggest question mark ever is you've got only Harry as your fit, only actual tall forward. Lewis Young is the guy that was the backup ruck in the preseason. He's not selected. So it does come back to, would they risk Jesus, who was the backup before he had his ACL? Is that way too much of a risk? Day one, first game back, it probably is. You'd say Harry's a big risk as well because people get hurt in the ruck. It's the most common way. You would say on paper, looking at how Carlton have negated it when Harry went off, that did spread. TDK did it 90% of the time, centre bounces, and then they used Wheater down back.
Right, okay, so they do it that way.
Forward, so they kind of like rested him that way. So it'd be interesting how Carlton do this. I mean, I do think it'll be Harry should he rest in the centre and TDK slides forward. But I'd imagine Carlton are going to try and get as much ruck minutes out of other players around stoppages, and Cripps just becomes the extra mid as he always does.
So I suppose from our perspective, I think it's going to be Ben Miller, the backup rucks. He's done it before, and I think in the absence of Curnow, it's probably something we can get him to do. Like if Curnow played, there was almost no chance we could have Miller do this because we would need him down there. Some people have floated Jacob Bauer as well. They saw him at training doing bits and pieces. I personally think he's too light on. I don't think he's anywhere near big enough to compete even as a backup ruckman, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, my money would be on Miller and then apparently Bauer. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. But you're right, Paddy Cripps even does stuff around the ground because he's just so brutally strong that he can hold his own. And yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It's an interesting one. Carlton's ruck situation. I do think TDK is everything because what we lack naturally in the midfield, TDK complements and makes it better in a way. So I think that's why Carlton have had success with Jesus in the ruck, with Cripps when he taps around the ground, because it effectively we want another midfielder. Do you know what I mean? We want another midfielder, and they kind of auxiliary do that. But this is a great battle because TDK, since the Darcy injury, since we played Sean Darcy and had a nightmare, this is something that he's worked with Cruiser on, of working against these big brutes. And I'm looking forward to seeing this because this is, I think, a great battleground.
I think it's almost a little bit of a blessing in disguise that Pitnet's not playing, because I think you're going to be far better long term with De Koning as your main ruck. He just offers a lot more, doesn't he?
He's the versatility is huge. It's really huge, and you do notice it. Like, I love Pitnet as well, but you notice when Pitnet is in the ruck solo, Carlton's midfield looks like my nana after she had her hip fall when I was a kid making a cup of tea. It takes her about 2 hours to move. So we always have a joke on Blue Abroad when I do the ratings. We release the heat maps, and I think like for 8 weeks in a row, Pitnet's is just like literally a red dot in the centre band. It's fascinating. It's like the guy never moves.
Very good. The next matchup we'll have a look at is another one where they're finally coming back up against each other. It's probably been a couple of years since we've seen a really good matchup between these two. Tom Lynch versus Jacob Wiedering. Obviously, we've been without Lynch for a couple of years. I mean, 8 games in 2 years is not really helping us out a hell of a lot. And Wiedering obviously missed a chunk of games himself. But he's pivotal to your side as much as Lynch is pivotal to our side. So it's going to be good to seeing them duke it out. The big question mark will be, do we try and drag Wiedering deeper, or will Wiedering maybe dictate the play a bit more and try and push up higher and intercept and do it that way? We just don't know how fit Lynch will be to be able to be the Lynch of old, getting up and down the ground. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, my gut was that's what teams try and do. They try and get Wiedering as deep in. We saw when Kemp was playing down back, teams had success because they took Wiedering away to help. So then they could target the frailty of Kemp and the impulsiveness of McGovern peeling off his man, right? Peeling off his man. So I think it would make sense if I was Uze, I'd be saying to Lynch, just stay in that goal square, stretch him, try and give him something to do. If you take a couple of marks early, Carlton are going to have to keep you on him.
Yeah.
What we have seen in preseason is Haynes is probably the godfather, I call him, of the modern day medium-sized, tall down the back. He was like that first Tom Stewart type character, and he does like to play in them central positions. We've seen McGovern in the hole now, so this could be interesting because I rate Lynch. This is the battle I'm really excited about seeing. It's arguably one of the best forwards when he's fit, arguably one of the best defenders in the comp when he's playing. This is what you want to see: two beasts of the game going together. And Tom Lynch gives me nightmares ever since that Gold Coast game I told you at the start of the show. That was one of his last season for Gold Coast. We ran you close 3 quarters. I think we had the lead as well in the 3rd quarter. Then you ran over the top of us. The hope was there, Gold Coast game 2. And Tom Lynch, I think, kicked like 6 or 7. The game was over at half-time at the G. So I always do have a bit nightmares when I see his beautiful Goldilocks.
The main worry I have with not so much this matchup, but just the Lynch in general, is if Bauer and Armstrong don't present and make themselves a target to make McGovern accountable, then I think it might be then too easy for someone like a McGovern to peel back and drop in front or even double team Lynch at various times. So I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of importance that's going to be around Bauer and Armstrong to get dangerous early. Maybe, look, they may not kick goals early, but I think just to get on their bikes, lead up at the ball carriers coming out of the back line, take some marks, and just make McGovern and whoever else might be on him just be that little bit more accountable, just so you can't double team Lynch if he's a bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why Jack Silvani is there as well. We've seen in the preseason that's what he was doing. He was doing a lot of work on Jesse Hogan, and that really did impress me. He managed to keep Hogan away from the contest, and especially them running lanes, which bought the time for McGovern to peel off to get it at the height of the ball. And Wheatering a few times, he got in the way and just took them forward just in a moment to give Wheatering that chance to get ahead. So that's what Carlton are definitely going to do. If you play him at home, they're going to try and get someone to help Wheaters get him out there. And Jacob will probably be, Jack will be the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. He seems to enjoy that role for the Blues. He sacrifices his game forward. Ruck is the consummate Blue. So I'm looking forward to this matchup, though. Someone said, worth the admission alone, spot on. Like, these are what you get excited for. Two big guys going at it.
That's it. Old school. Duke it out. And the one thing I hope for from our perspective, we have a very, very bad habit of when we get the ball at about the 80-meter mark, we tend to slow it down. Now, there might be a tactical reason why we do this, but I reckon that if we get the ball 80 out and we see Lynch and Wiedering deep one-on-one, get it in there. Just whatever happens, happens. Just I reckon you're better off giving your forwards that one-on-one chance than to hold it up for 15 seconds and let 18 Carlton players enter the back 50 or the forward 50 along with Richmond players following close behind and clogging it up. I know some clubs like to have the front half stoppages and things like that, but surely getting him into an isolated one-on-one, like you think the other way around, if you had Curnow and Mackay in the 50 by himself, and I actually made note of this at work today to a Carlton colleague, that the one thing that Mackay and Curnow do exceptionally well, when they've got the ball 80 metres out, because they're key forwards and they know how they want the ball, they will wheel and go quickly and put the ball in there quickly to give someone a chance. And I reckon we need to do the same thing on Thursday night.
It's something I've often said. I'd love Harry and Charlie sometimes to spend a day in training making the midfield play full forward on Wheatering and say, we're going to kick to you how you kick to us. See how annoying it is having this all the time, and then actually show them how to kick to them and say, this is how we want it. If you kick like this, we win all day. So I agree with you. It's going to be an interesting one because I do think watching Bauer, I was impressed with him in the preseason. That is definitely an area that Carlton are going to be expecting the Lynch one. So I'd be looking, if I was calling Richmond, a lot of variety. Don't make it obvious as well. Like, make sure it's varied. Some nice short kicks, some nice deep kicks. That's what you did well in the first quarter against Collingwood. It's hard to read then. So that's where Bauer's strength is, being allowed to try and take that ball a bit higher up the ground.
And to widescreen TV's point that Sammy Lawler, despite being obviously fresh off the blocks, he's already shown in the limited time we've seen him, he can be a pretty handy lead-up half forward. While he's not, I think he's going to be, let's say, 60% forward, 40% midfield, whatever that might look like. But he's a nice lead-up mark, strong hands, and a pretty good shot for goal. So my hope there is that he does enough damage early somehow that he has to get shown respect to. This is just all about making sure Carlton defenders can be made held accountable, because if we can't do that, you'll have a field day.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at games. If I was you, what would I be wanting to do? And knowing my team, I mean, this is one of them cases where we saw Kemp be the target last year down back, bless him. Uze's got to be saying to Sammy, I want you one-on-one with Ollie Hollands. Yep. He's new down there. It's a new position. It's obviously a vulnerable position. He's going to be full of nerves. Like, go out there and make him work. Make the Blues have to switch this matchup. And I said that in my preview. It's about switching matchups. Try and make the coach's box go, okay, Sam's going to kill him. We need to get Sard on him. Cowan needs to get on him as soon as possible. Ollie needs to be moved away a little bit. And that's where Sam's got to be looking at. Like, that would be, if I was the captain of Richmond, I'd be saying to Sam, get out there one-on-one with him. I promise you, I'll find you. That's all you've got to do. Just get out there one-on-one with him. I'll get it to you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we use him there. The final matchup now, I made this slide at lunchtime today. This is how confident I'll be that this will eventuate. And I watched your preview, and I don't think you had this guy factored in to do the tagging role. Not many people might have. I've got Camden McIntosh on Patrick Cripps. Now, he was named in the centre for us, and during pre-season, he has actually done quite a few centre bounce involvement in match sim training. So we kind of cottoned onto it earlier, but we weren't sure if that was just to even out numbers or not. But then you see in the West Coast game and then the Collingwood game, he was sort of thrust into some tagging roles. Now, the funny thing is, I reckon for the last 6-7 years, Richmond supporters have been screaming out, we need a tagger, we need a tagger. Even when we were good, we were saying it, but we never got one. Now we've got someone who can play the role. People aren't happy with who it is that's been the tagger. So we can't win. But the reason why I think Camden McIntosh is the ideal candidate, and I think he has to do this, is because number one, Patrick Cripps is an absolute jet, and he will get 40 touches plus if we don't do this, and that will hurt us immensely. The aim of the game for us is to try and prolong the time it takes for you to get on top of us and put us away. Really, that's the reality of it. And I think quelling Cripps's influence might be part of it. Now, similar to what you said about Silvani, McIntosh for us is that player who can sacrifice his game. He sacrificed himself on the wing by guarding space. He'll win 2v1s. He's an aerobic animal. He'll run all day with Cripps. I just think we have to try this to try and at least equalise out of the midfield. If we don't, it's going to be a bloodbath pretty early.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I gave Jack Ross the props in my video because I was really impressed with his defensive intent. I thought he was really good. He was your top tackler from memory as well in that preseason game. I really like that. I do think this makes sense, though, because Cripps' biggest strength isn't just his size. If you speak to players, I had Alex Chincotta on the show once, and he said, because he's our tagger, and he said that the best players lose you at stoppage, lose you around clearance. Like, they're just there 1 minute, they're gone the next, and they weave through traffic. And if you watch Cripps, that's probably his biggest gift no one gives him credit for. He almost walks through the ruck contest, which buys him that space. That buys him that space. That suddenly he's out on his own. And McIntosh is a brain, isn't he? He's got great footy IQ. I'm a huge fan of Cam McIntosh. When I did the watch along, I said he's one of the players that makes sense you kept because he's Mr. Richmond. Nothing's too hard. Put my head over the ball. I'll work my ass out for you. That's who you want around the club, not your flash Harrys like Liam Baker and stuff like that. You want your workhorses. So I don't mind this matchup. I mean, physically, I think this is the issue that we've seen when Cripps is tagged. Not many people match up to him physically, and this guy can. Cripps, I love him so much, but this guy can walk out of the stoppage with 4 people and still win the ball. But it's about keeping him accountable with Cripps. You don't want him getting on the end. You want him starting the chain and putting the pressure. And I think that could be a good matchup. Cripps versus McIntosh, and then Cripps is going to be looking to offload the ball to his mate, Sammy Walsh, who was some of the littler players last week because Walsh wasn't playing. So maybe Ross, with his elite engine as well, he maybe tries to give Walsh that problem and Carlton then have to start handballing too much. That's what you want us to do.
And that's the other problem, isn't it? Because Walsh was equally as good as Cripps and could easily get 30 or 40 of his own. But, yeah, I think with Cripps, it's just going to have to be more about he still might get it, let's say 28 to 35 times instead of 40, but if we can make sure they aren't clean disposals, you want them to be scuffed kicks or hurried kicks so he's not able to pinpoint passes and actually hurt us with delivery inside 50 and things like that. So I think that's our best hope with Camden McIntosh doing that. And then hopefully it's going to allow players like Hopper and Taranto to actually hunt the ball, which is kind of what they do best, and Jack Ross to a lesser extent too. Because Hopper's had probably one of his best pre-seasons, injury-wise, fitness-wise, all that kind of stuff. So he seems primed to go. And I know a lot of people wanting to see Hopper do the job on Cripps. I just think it's, I don't say a waste, but I think we're better served to have Hopper try and source the ball himself and get it moving forward and let someone like Camden, who maybe isn't as blessed by foot with the ball as other players, let him do the grunt work and do the chasing, and we'll see what happens from there. But, yeah, if Walsh then gets off the chain, you're right, maybe it is a Sam Ross to have a go. And to widescreen TV's point again, it's a good one. That Hewitt's actually had some ripper games against us as well, to be honest. So he's another one who can be damaging with the ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've seen them swap roles this year. I don't know if people watched the Carlton game. I don't know if you guys did put yourself through that, because I have to put myself through it, and even I get sad doing it. But Hewitt definitely has lost a few pounds, looks a bit sharper, and has definitely gone to that more provider role. And behind the back of the stoppage, he's like the outlet. He's like, if Cripps has got nowhere to go forward, I'm here. Don't worry, I'll get it out. I'll get it to someone. So that could be an interesting one. I would say Hopper to Hewitt would be the logical one, because you want the person who you want to have 30 touches playing Hewitt, because that's going to be Carlton's bailout strategy. Like, Cripps is going to be the get it out guy to Walsh, Jera, the ball users, but Hewitt's going to be the bailout plan. So if McIntosh does his job properly, that ball indirectly will probably come to Hewitt 20 times. You want your
Yeah.
danger there, like a Taranto or a Hopper, the guy who's going to be your Cripps. So I'm glad you've mentioned them, because Taranto and Hopper I'm very harsh on. I'm excited about them this year, because now it's the time you earn your big bucks. It's not winning premierships. The narrative has changed. Now you're the senior players. And I want to see Taranto control the game. And I feel like now he's got to do it. Now he's got to get in to the big boy pants and say, I can control it. So he should be relishing this, going, right, it's Cripps midfield, but this is my midfield too. Let's see what we're about.
Yeah, I think there's definitely seemed like a shift of mentality for him in the off-season, that now he is one of the more senior members. He's into the leadership group now, and I think he's now realised this is his time to step up and run and organise the midfield, while also passing on knowledge to the Smileys of the world and Lawler coming through, who are going to play in there as well. It's just a completely different role. So, I suppose our concern is, I still don't know if a midfield of Taranto, Hopper, Ross or Prestia, if and when he's playing, I just don't know if that's balanced enough. We just feel like it's a little bit too slow. So we might see players like Mansell and Campbell potentially roll through there as well, just to get a bit of speed. I think a few of us were maybe hoping that Maurice Rioli might come on in some way, shape and form and fill a void there as well. I just think, pace might be the issue that ultimately gets us in a lot of games. Hopefully we can somehow curtail that from the Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I said it at the start of the programme. Campbell around the stoppages, that is that area, that direct, them Tuck Millers, them guys who take direct running patterns around stoppage, accountant's kryptonite. And it's so annoying, because you see teams set it up and it's almost like you want to pause the TV, go out there and go, Cripps, you see Tuck there, he's just going to run straight away. When that ball's run, he's just going to run. Ignore everything. It's a decoy, and it's almost like we can't stop it. So Seth's definitely going to be one of them players. Steely Green, great shout by Lachlan. You've got a lot of quick players. I mean, I think Sammy Layla, in time, he is going to be that man. Like, you don't want to do it as soon as possible, though. You want to give him them credits. And there is a gentleman that people forget about, Josh Smiley, you guys have got. Everyone compared him to Cripps, and I was like, it's the stupidest comparison in the world, because he's a big kid with smaller kids. In reality, Cripps would eat him, would look at him and laugh. But he is the modern day Cripps. If you look at how he plays, he's very similar to the Jagger mode. He likes to keep the game moving. He knows his limitations. He's a playmaker, but not a sexy playmaker like your Dacoses and the guys that get all the raps. This guy is a metronome. So he's going to be one, I think, in the future. That's Sammy and him as a combination. It's going to be grouse.
Yeah, it should be good. And look, we'll probably end up with a high pick again this year, and hopefully we'll top up again with another midfielder. Luke Trainer's the other one who we're looking forward to. I'm not sure if you saw much of. He played probably the last quarter and a bit against the Pies. I think he had 14 disposals at 91%. And I know every club probably thinks this when they draft someone, so it will sound very cliche, but in a lot of ways, he could potentially end up being one of the steals of the draft with getting him at 21. He is a super reader of the ball and a very smooth mover. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how he plays. And look, it's a huge, huge stage. Might get overawed, maybe he won't, but I suppose we'll find out one way or another. But he looked pretty at home against the Pies, so hopefully he does the same again.
You literally traded like about 70%, because you've also got Olga as well. Guys that I was really hot on, that I was saying that the media are painting a picture of players, but these guys are probably better. Armstrong was one of them that I was huge on, but I was huge on Trainer. If you go back and watch my footage, I was like, the Alex Tyree is the AFL media. The guy has got brilliant blonde hair. He looks graceful. He looks fantastic. It is the biggest Decepticon I've ever seen. Because I was like, if you want a defender, a modern-day interceptor, look no further than Luke Trainer. And there was these rumours about concussion and stuff like that, but this kid can play footy. And I saw it in the Collingwood game. This guy's got balls of steel. He's not scared to come off his man. He's not scared to attack. And that is what you want. And you've got Bolter there, who is going to be the one-on-one general. He's the big beefcake. And behind every beefcake is the sexy ball-using interceptor. I'm huge on Trainer. And if Carlton players resort to type, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to intercept and show his thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing Lukey there and hopefully dispelling this myth that he's second to Trainer.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. It'll be a forever going battle, won't it? There'll be comparisons for many years to come. But All right, well, let's get a final thoughts and prediction, including margin. And like I said, don't feel like you've got to be polite about the margin. It is what it is. We know where we're at. How do you think the game's going to pan out over the 4 quarters, and what's going to be the final margin?
I think it's going to be a cagey first quarter. Genuinely think it's going to be a cagey first quarter from the Blues as they try and ingrain their game and their habits. Usually is for the Blues in the opening couple of rounds. MCG, bit of nerves. But I do think Carlton will win this game. What was my margin in my video? Be consistent, Pommy. I think it was 65. So I'm going to go with that. I think the Blues will win this. They are a 10-goal better side, and that's said with all the respect in the world.
No, it's fully appreciated, and I tend to agree. I think we'll be competitive for the first quarter and a half, maybe 2 quarters, but the class of the Blues will end up, reigning supreme and getting the job done. I think that if Carlton, and this isn't meant to sound disparaging, but if Carlton don't win by 50, I think they might be concerned internally, and we would take it as a win. If we can get it under 30 or 40 points somehow, that might end up being an okay outcome for us. But the Blues are definitely a well-oiled machine, and I do expect them to run away and get the win towards the end of the game. We had someone just come through here wanting to know your thoughts on Taj Houghton.
I love the Houghton boys. So I was a big Ollie Houghton fan. I was always worried about his injuries, but Taj is very like his brother. He is X factor. So if you can get him right, because the Houghtons are like blessed with just these niggling injuries all the time, but he is definitely superior to Ollie, his brother. He's sharp. He's got that footy IQ. He's got that sense. He's got that selfishness, I call it in my draft previews, where he seems to know when to go, but he also knows when to give people a bit of love and handball it off. And that's what you look for in the real good players. Them players that are like, okay, the scouts are watching me, but I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to try and kick 50 and get a contract. I'm going to do it. So he's in the right place, and he could be a great little foil in the future for them small forwards. So I hope he goes well. I'm a big fan there.
I'm kind of hoping, without wanting to put pressure on the kid, that he becomes our next Shane Edwards. Just has great vision, good agility through traffic. If you can get somewhere near those heights, you'll be laughing. But a long way to go for that, I know. But he's an exciting prospect.
And you know what? Like, Richmond are similar to the Blues in the avenue that you guys are fanatical. So, like, what a great place for a young man to come. Like, I always say, being English, you grow up, you want to play for Man United, you want to play for Leeds United, you want to play for Liverpool, the big clubs.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same here in Australia. Can you imagine being a young lad, Richmond, Carlton? That's where you'd want to go, isn't it? You'd want to play for these. And we make heroes, don't we? We make heroes of them. So for Houghton, he's playing for his family. His brother, I felt, was very stiff at St Kilda. Looking forward to seeing him because he's playing for that pride. And, he'll be a terrific player. He's got great IQ.
He definitely does. I'll answer this one quickly, Ryan. Why do I think Dow gets a game? Look, I've been a big defender of Dow. I thought he did a good role last year. He was asked to play a role he wasn't meant to play, being a number 1 midfielder. But Uze's got this vision of him being on the wing. Now, I probably don't fully agree with that vision, so I'm interested to see where he ends up playing. But I imagine he might be a candidate for sub or Sonzi. I would rather Sonzi play a full game and Dow be sub if I had to pick one. But Dow will be interesting. I think the progression of our team by round 7, 8, or 9, someone else needs to have stepped up to push him out. Essentially, if we're going to be stepping forward, that's what we're going to have to see. So,
you guys been mean to my Thompson Dow.
Do you like him? Do you?
Actually, we had Paddy Dow. One of my first bits of like content used to be written, and I think it was the 2017 draft. I was huge on Adam Chera, and someone mentioned, I think it was Lachlan in the comments, saying prototype footballer. Dow was that prototype footballer because around that era, everyone wanted to be Dangerfield or Dusty. It was like the two people that everyone had to be. And there was this worry with me when I watched Dow that he did remind me of Danger. Runs out of a stoppage, throws it on his foot, kicks it as far as he can. Looks great when you're Danger, but for everyone else, they're the players you wish would be ripped off the ground and never seen again. But Chera was that reliable guy, gets 25 touches. It's all good. He's reliable. I like safe. When you've got one pick in the top 10, that's why Richmond, you guys could take excitement, and you did. You got excited.
That's right. Yeah, you can hedge your bets a little bit.
I always made the joke. I like Thompson because I was like, Thompson is boring. I remember talking about it in the draft. He's boring. He's that guy that's just AFL average. And that's probably his ceiling, and that's okay. But every club needs at least 5 or 6 AFL average ceiling players. It keeps you honest. But he hasn't kicked on, has he, like that, Tommy? He still looks... Paddy's the same. You look at pictures of Paddy now, I actually think he was bigger when he was 17. Like, it's almost like the guy has de-evolved, as opposed to, like, you look at, like... I look at Jesse Motlop, and he looks like a man now. He looks like, like he's got a beard and stuff. But I look at him 2 years ago, and he looked like a child. Like Dow, he still looks like, if you said to me, Thompson Dow and Paddy Dow had just come through this draft class, I'd be like, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, size-wise, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like they never evolve. And even their game, they don't seem to add anything. It's just like, still a first-year draftee. So, yeah, it just made me laugh because, the last year we had Dow, Carlton fans are like, he's rubbish. Why is he in the team? Sick of seeing him. And it's just funny to see it. I was like, oh, poor Dow. It can't be fun being Mr. and Mrs. Dow.
Same thing, history repeating. So, all right, well, Pommy, thank you so much, mate, for coming on tonight. Really, really appreciate it. It's been amazing to get your insights. I think tonight proves exactly why it was worth doing a show like this, to get that genuine insight and analysis from an opposition supporter. So, on behalf of all the Richmond supporters watching, and hopefully some Carlton supporters will watch as well, thank you so much, mate. Your time is greatly appreciated.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. You know what? Have a great 2025. You guys will be back. Like 3 years of maybe eating the poo sandwich, maybe 2. You might do a Hawthorne because you're probably going to get North's pick as well next year, which will be a huge top 3 pick as well. So you'll be back soon. And you know what? Long may it continue. I can't wait to see you guys back. I'm really excited about seeing you back there because you deserve to be top 8. Like Carlton, Essendon, Collingwood, Richmond. That's the dream. All 4 of us.
That's it. We need another Richmond Carlton final.
Oh, mate, don't we? I mean, Juddy. How good was that? Yeah, do you know what I mean? Every Carlton fan, that's all we've got. Just so you know, you've got 4 flags in that period. We've got the Juddy goal.
And Brock McLean, I swear to God, played his best game against Richmond only. Every time he played us, he killed us.
Oh, mate, yeah. You know what? It felt so good. I remember Nick Digon. I remember I drove to that game, right? So that was like one of the first games. The guy I was in the car with heard it on the radio. Nick Digon was playing. Like he was a late in, if you remember. Yeah. And like my mate all the way going, he's bloody useless. Oh, I might as well just fucking give it to the Tigers. Absolutely useless. Worst player ever. I'd rather put you there, mate. Absolutely useless. And the guy like turned into prime buddy, didn't he? Like, I was enjoying it the entire game. Going, is that the guy you said was the worst footballer ever?
Yeah, it was a shit kicker. Yeah, exactly. It's funny how that turns out, isn't it? So it's never worth going the early crow with things like that, is it?
Mate, I've been the victim of it. There's a famous clip of me against Port Ladhams in the ruck, and me going, he's not a ruckman's arsehole. Absolutely pants. Carlton will destroy him. And I think he had like 25 touches, 2 Brownlow votes and 2 goals. And I've never lived it down. It's the last time I've ever made a bold call because, like, honestly, watching Ladhams turn into prime Dean Cox was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I've been banned from our listeners by making bold calls for reasons similar to what you've just said. But we had I suppose the Wayne Carey moment was Mason Cox in the prelim final against Rance. Just was prime Wayne Carey, couldn't stop him. I'm like, what is happening? How is this even a thing that Mason Cox is doing it? Yes. So just so you know, Lachlan's actually one of the regular 5 that's on the panel. So he knows that's why he wrote that, because he knows exactly why. He's one of the people who's been trying to ban me for making big calls because I keep getting myself in trouble. But
I remember that final so well as well, because like I said, a few of my best mates are Richmond. So every year we used to go and have beers at one of the houses, and it used to make me so depressed because obviously they'd make me barrack for another team because they'd be like, oh, his team have got the wooden spoon, so you can come with us and you can be a Richmond fan for the day, support us. And I remember that game, and I remember just watching Mason Cox like tear apart the reigning premiers. And I was crazy. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. It made no sense, but oh well, it's if that didn't happen, maybe the other flags wouldn't happen. Who knows? we'll never know. But thank you again, Pommy, for joining us tonight. You're an absolute superstar. Great to see some love for him in the chat. Your football knowledge and wisdom is exceptional. So it's a shame we don't play you again because we would have got you back on, but it's our one and only hit out against the Blues. But thank you very, very much. And good luck to the Blues for 2025. And hopefully, above all else, hopefully we get through with a clean bill of health on Thursday night for both clubs.
Hey, mate, if you want me back, I can do a team you can't do. I can be in neutral. Well, GWS, there's no fans of GWS. I'll pretend to be a Giants fan.
I will do that then. Sounds good. All right, until next time, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed that. Good luck for everyone who's attending the game tomorrow night. Should be an absolute belter. And we'll see you all on Monday night for the next live show. Thanks again, Pommy. And until next time, go Tigers.